On today's episode, we're going to talk about how do you start a digital agency and what are the 5 systems that you need so you don't struggle and you can grow your agency at a faster rate. If you're new to the show is all about showing you strategies and tactics so you can grow your agency much faster. If you're not yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell button so you never miss out on an episode again. What's up everybody, Jason Swank here, and I was just chatting with an agency is thinking about going after a particular niche, and they were telling me about all the research that they were doing, and they were actually doing all the research on their competition that's going after this particular niche. And they were saying, hey, I was calling them up, finding out their proposals, their pricing, their structure, how do they actually do everything, who are their clients, all of this. And I said, it's great that you have a niche that you've narrowed down, and that's really kind of the first step. But I think you're doing it all the wrong way, and let me explain. They were researching their competition, where they should have been researching their future clients and calling them up and figuring out what are their biggest problems, what do they struggle with, what do they want to transform into, and really uncovering everything so they can kind of immerse themselves and talk the same language and making sure that they can actually help them out. Now, the biggest thing when you're starting an agency, you may start looking at the bigger agencies and you start looking at everything they're doing and you're going to try to compete with them on their level. Well, you have to create your own level. You're not ready to compete with them at their own game. You have to create your own game. And so it's really about drilling down into the niche and really uncovering that. Because when you look at the bigger agencies, you're going to look at all the services that they do, all the markets that go after, and you're not going to really understand how they actually got there. So for example, think of Facebook, of what they did when they wanted to compete with MySpace. They didn't compete with MySpace and go after everyone. They started with Harvard students, and then Ivy League schools, then universities, and so on and so on. And that's what you need to do. So everything big starts off small. So focus on one particular niche. And in order to do this, you have to figure out, what do I have knowledge in? Who can I actually help greatly? And which do I have passion in? If you can answer those 3 questions and dive into that niche and start researching that niche and start calling them, surveying them, meeting with them, you're going to uncover a lot of stuff and create your own playing field that you can beat out the bigger competition. Because I like to say I don't have any competition. My only competition is cat videos and procrastination, because I've drilled down far enough. And then I'm me, and I have my own process, my own structure, and that's what I want for you. That's what I want for you in creating your agency, so you can separate yourself, you can create your own playing field that you can win, because if you play on someone else's field, it's a lot harder to win as a visitor. The other thing I want you to do is figure out, once you pick this particular niche, you need to figure out why. What's that vision of where do I want to go so I know what to say no to? And what's that why? And let me give you an example. Our vision is to create a resource I wish I had when I was running my agency. So I ran an agency for 12 years until I sold it. We grew it to over 100 people. You know, it was a big, successful agency. Then once you figure out your niche, you really need to figure out, what is the vision? Where do I want to go in this agency and why? So when I was creating this particular business to help agency owners grow faster, my why was I wanted to create a resource I wish I had when I was running my agency. So I ran an agency for 12 years until I sold it. We went from 0 to over 100 people. And I remember how hard and isolating and frustrating it was doing it all on my own. And I knew I could have done it quicker if someone laid out the resources and the strategies, kind of what I'm doing here. And so our why is to create a resource which we had. So my team was developing a blog post on the top conferences agency owners need to go to. They sent it to me. There was 3 conferences on there that I didn't like the people that was running, and I said, no, don't list it. And my team was able to make a better decision and call me out on it and say, look, Jason, it's not about you. It's about the agency owners and what's right for them. And I said, you are exactly right, put it in there. So it allowed us to make a better decision. So if we knew the ship was going north and the ship started going off to the east, we can make a course correction. We know what to say no to and what to say yes to. And I give the power to my team in order to do that. So as you are starting your agency and you start hiring people, the most important thing to do is to give them the vision and the why you're doing this, because this will give them the ammo and the power in order to make a better decision. Because when you start hiring people, hopefully they're smarter than you. And if they have a direction, now they'll be able to make more decisions rather than coming to you for every single decision. All right, now that we have clarity, which is system one, we know who we're going after, we know why we're going after, and we know where we actually want to go. Now we can get into positioning, which is the second system. Now, a lot of agencies position themselves in a way where the story that they're telling to someone else, they're making themselves the star in the story. They're making themselves Batman. And if you make and put all the attention on you, you're making them Robin. And no one wants to wear those ugly green tights. What you need to do is you need to position yourself as Alfred. You need to position yourself as the trusted advisor to the star in their story. So if you're the trusted advisor, you're listening, you're giving them advice, you're telling them what they need to do based on the problem or what they actually want to transform into. Think about it this way. Think about if you're at a conference and someone comes up to you and starts talking to you and telling you all about themselves. What are you thinking? You're like, man, how do I get away from this dude? But if they come up to you, another guy comes up and just starts asking you questions saying, hey, why'd you come to the conference? How can I help you out? Who can I introduce you to? You're gonna love it because the story is about you and the focal point's on you. The same thing goes on your website. If you go to my website, you're not going to see, hey, do you want to know how I built and grew sold a big agency? No. You're going to see, do you want to know how you can grow and scale your agency? So it's all about positioning and telling the right story. Now, the third system is all around the offering and figuring out what do you need to charge and what you need to offer. Too many agencies start off with too low of pricing because they don't understand the value that they're going to deliver, or what are the expectations of the prospect you're chatting with. So for example, I was chatting with a company that I'd never heard of. I went into this meeting, I pitched them a $20,000 website at the time. At the time, that was a huge website for me. And they kind of laughed. I came back and people were like, well, how'd it go? I was like, well, I kind of said 20,000. They laughed. Maybe they thought it was too much. So they were like, who's the company? And so I was like, Brookshire. And they were like, Berkshire Hathaway? I was like, yeah, that's it. And we looked up the stock and they were like one of the biggest companies in the world. I was like, oh crap, this is I think I did it wrong. And what I found out was they were anticipating and their expectation was like 300,000 for a website. So obviously when they looked at my $20,000 proposal, they were like, hey, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what we actually need to create. And it was like an example of if I had a Ferrari to sell you, I said, hey, I want to buy my Ferrari for $100, immediately you're going to think about what's wrong with it. Is it stolen? Is it a Matchbox car? What's wrong with it? And that's what they were thinking. So you always got to figure out what's the expectation and what are the results that you're going to deliver for your clients, and think about it that way. The other thing you need to think about is not going in for marriage right off the bat. Let's say you're a Facebook agency and you meet with a prospect and you say, look, I'm gonna do this $10,000 a month retainer and I'm gonna run your Facebook ads and drive you traffic. Well, that's a big decision for them and it's high risk. So how can you make it less risky, build up trust, so then you possibly could sell it at $15,000? Well, you have to think about your offering ladder and think about how can you slice off part of your service. So for example, think about a foot in the door offer. What could I do to map out a success plan for them, a roadmap, a blueprint, and charge maybe $2,000 or $2,500 for it, where we meet with them, and this is important, you have to meet with them so you're building it together. And you just start asking questions, be like, what do you think we would need to do in order to increase traffic? If we did this, what do you think? If we did this, what do you think? And then by the end, you've built this plan for them where they're going to have this as a roadmap that they can follow. And then what you'll do is saying, hey, do you like this plan? They're gonna say, yeah, this is a good plan, because you've built it with them. And you say, do you want our help on this? And then you put together a proposal for the project. And this project is going to be, let's say it takes you 2 months for them to be able to see results from your Facebook marketing. So you're gonna do a 3-month project. So while you're in the project, you're going to start positioning the retainer for $15,000 because now they've already trusted you. You don't want to position the retainer when you're done the project because they're just mentally checked out. Like the project's done, they don't want to have to restart something. But if you're already in it and you're adding on, it's easier decision for them. So you just think about that offering ladder of what can you slice off, how do you actually help them out? And when you do this, you're going to close the prospect a hell of a lot quicker and you're going to build up trust. So now that I've walked you through the first 3 foundational systems, now you can get into prospecting. See, a lot of agencies just go right into prospecting and be like, let's cold call, let's run Facebook ads, but they don't have the foundation of who they're going after positioned in the right way or the right offering. And they're going to struggle. You see how this is all working and tying together? So the 4th system is prospecting, and you gotta think about it in 3 different channels, right? The first channel, I always like to say, is create an outbound channel of how am I gonna make a list of the targeted prospects that I wanna go after and who I can help out right now, and identifying the opportunities of how you can actually help them and call them up, send them a Loom video, send them a LinkedIn request, send them all this kind of stuff in order to help them first and let them know why you're doing this in order to get that conversation going. The reason why I tell you to do this is the only thing you can control. So if you run Facebook ads, you can't really control that. If you are relying on referrals, that's just not scalable. You can't control that either. So I want you to start an outbound channel first, and you can get your first couple clients and get the right ones first at the right pricing, and you can win. The next one is strategic partnerships. So now that you have a niche and you know who you're going after, what technologies are they using? What publications are they reading? What associations are they involved in? What conferences do they go to? What other people are selling to them that you can create and form a strategic partnership, not a referral partner back and forth, but how does 2 + 2 = 10? How can you benefit them first and make a deposit before you make withdrawal? The third is inbound. Now you can create the funnels and having people come to you. So now if 1 channel goes down or 2 channels goes down, you still got 1, okay? You still got 1 to help out and keep building that pipeline, because building your pipeline is the most crucial thing along with cash flow for building your agency. All right, now that we've done the prospecting, now we need to get into sales, right? We need to make sure that we're qualifying and we're not talking to the wrong prospect. Because a big mistake I see agencies make is they chat with a prospect for a couple hours or a couple weeks or a couple months or even longer, and then they only find out that they weren't qualified from the very beginning. So in the very beginning, I want you to ask yourself these 4 kind of questions. And just remember N.B.A.T. Need, budget, authority, and timing. Right off the bat, you got to make sure that their need matches up with your core offering. If it doesn't, walk away. Don't continue the conversation. You can't create more time, and you need all your time in order to build this agency. The next is the budget. You need to figure out their budget. Remember about the Berkshire Hathaway story. If I figured out their budget, I'd figure out their expectations. Now, what happens a lot of times is you ask, what's their budget? They say, I don't know, you just tell me, or I have no idea. They have an idea. They have a range in their head. So you need to get that out of them and say, look, I just need to know some kind of range in order to help you out. So are you trying to stay around 100,000, 90,000, 80,000? Start high and go low, because they're always going to remember the first number. And just say, look, I just need to know some kind of range to make sure I'm the right fit for you. And you'll get the budget. The next is make sure that they're authority. If you're talking to someone that's just researching and just trying to get a proposal, you're going to waste your time, and they're going to do the worst job, be the worst salesperson for you. You need to talk to the authority. If you can't talk to authority, walk away. And then the last part is timing. You need to make sure that their expectations of having this done tomorrow is not realistic, and you're just creating a bad client. And there's no such thing as a bad agency client. There's only a bad prospect or a bad process. And most of the time, they're a bad prospect that you should have said no. So you need to make sure you go through N.B.A.T in order to qualify. Then once you qualify, you need to go through the 3 I's. What's the biggest issue? What's the impact, and what's the importance to them? As agencies, we chat with someone and we find out their biggest issues, and we start seeing like 100 issues, and we try to solve all of them, and we point out all 100 issues to the prospect, and what happens is you overwhelm them and they don't know where to start. So you really want to drill down to what is their biggest issue. And when you can do that, now you get focus. And then what you want to do is have them determine the impact that it's having on their business if they don't do anything or if they do something with you. And it's important to have them come up with the impact, not you. Because if you come up with the impact and the value, they're not going to believe you. If they do, they're going to believe you. And then now this is your leverage to pull later on. And then after that, you need to figure out how important is it to them. So if you're talking to a Warren Buffett and you saved him $100,000, that's like chump change to him. It's not that important. So you need to make sure how important it is. If that one's not that important, then you need to go back and figure out what's the biggest issue and then what's the impact again. And that's what you need to focus on when you go on to the next phase. Now, there are a ton of things that we weren't able to cover because obviously we could talk hours and hours on this. And I really have a program called the Agency Playbook that breaks all of these things down even more granular and more macro, where it's a bunch of videos and audio and training and exercises that really shows you a step-by-step process that you need to follow. And it even goes through other systems. I only covered the first 5 very, very briefly, very, very quick. But there's 8 systems in total, and the other systems are delivery, operations, and leadership. And those are crucial for you to become the agency CEO. And it's basically an agency in a box. It's like what I would use to recreate my agency in today's market. So I want you to check out the Agency Playbook. So go to jasonswank.com/playbook. That's jasonswank.com/playbook. Request an invite and look it over and see if it's right for you. And if you're really serious about starting an agency and growing your agency, this is the program for you that will map everything out that you can build upon. And it will give you the tools and the resources that you need in order to be successful. Now, I'd love to hear your comments of what are your thoughts? What are you struggling with starting your agency? And what do you need help with? If you're not yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell button so you never miss out on another episode, and I will chat with you later. Have a swank day.